Hello and welcome. Protesters have stormed Libya's parliament in the eastern city of Tobruk and set fire to parts of the building. Thick columns of smoke were seen rising to the sky from tires set on fire. Sorry, I'll take that again. Hello, good evening. Protesters have stormed Libya's parliament in the eastern city of Tobruk and set fire to part of the building. Thick columns of smoke were seen rising to the sky from tires set on fire outside the building. In recent times, Libyans have been holding rallies across the country in demand for a political solution to their country's crisis. The recent protests were also fueled by continuing power cuts and rising prices of food and services. There are two rival administrations in the country, one in the capital Tripoli and the other based out of the eastern city of Tobruk. Abdul the Biba, who heads the interim unity government, backs the protesters' demand. He said all the country's institutions must change. While denouncing the violence that has taken over several cities in the country, the United Nations Libyan envoy Stephanie Williams told the BBC that the protests were a clarion call for the political class to put their differences aside and hold the elections that the Libyan people want. In Nigeria, following a tip-off from a mother whose child was missing, police stormed a church and rescued 77 people, 50 of which were children. The incident happened at the Whole Bible Believers Church in the Valentino area of Ondo State in southwest Nigeria. Some of the people rescued have been there for months. According to a police source, the rescued church followers, including school children, were told that the second coming of Jesus Christ would happen in April, and as a result, they abandoned everything they were doing and went to the church to prepare for the event. When rapture did not happen in April, the pastor of the church changed the date to September 2022. The pastor also told the young church members to obey only their parents in the Lord. David Anifowoshe, the pastor of the church, and his deputy, Josiah Peter Asumosa, have been arrested while the victims have been taken into the care of Ondo State Social Services. The first Igbo language translation of the Quran has been published in Nigeria. The launch occurred at the Ansarudeen Mosque in Nigeria's capital, Abuja. Translator Muhammad Murtala Chukwuemeka told the BBC that it took him 5 years to translate the sacred Islamic text from Arabic to Igbo. Mr. Chukwuemeka converted to Islam in 1989. He later studied to become an Islamic cleric. He told the BBC that he had printed hundreds of copies of the Quran in Igbo as he wants to spread the message of Allah to his Igbo brothers and sisters. While Igbo people are found in every part of Nigeria, the Igbo language is mostly spoken in southeastern Nigeria, where most people are Christian. Nigeria is Africa's most populous nation and has a mainly Muslim population in the north, with the south being largely Christian. I am Chido Onuma. It is 4:30 p.m. in Abuja, Nigeria. It is 10:30 a.m. in New York. It is 5:30 p.m. in Tripoli, Libya, and 6:30 p.m. in Madagascar. Wherever in the world you are joining us, welcome to another edition of 90 Minutes Africa. On our show today, social media influencer, the great oracle, Abdul Mahmoud, will join us. He will help us examine the impact of social media and influencers on the 2023 election. Abdul, the great oracle, welcome to the show. This is Abdul. Hello, Abdul. Well, we'll play some. Okay, he's back.
I'm
Hello.
very sorry. My network has been playing up. Just trying to troubleshoot
Anyway,
networks now.
I can imagine. Sorry about that.
Yeah,
That's part of the challenge of this. I hope you got a
absolutely.
bit of the introduction. Well, we're happy to have you on the show. Uh, yeah, so could you just give us a brief background of who you are and what you do? Then we can take it from there.
Right. My name is Abdul Mahmoud. I'm a lawyer by profession. I think this is my 30th year post call as a practicing lawyer. My field of specialty or specialization, if you like, is human rights law and, and constitutional law. By fortune of life, I'm also availed the opportunity of leading a young group of uh, a group of young lawyers interested in promoting public interest law, uh, rights of ordinary citizens of our country, and defending their rights. The group is called the Public Interest Lawyers League. Perhaps I'm also a poet. I write under my non-degree matter, and that's all about it.
Well, that's a very rich CV. You forgot to mention that you were one-time president of the National Association of Nigerian Students, and
No,
looking
no,
at what's happening.
no, Chido, in 2019, when the then leadership of the National Association of Nigerian Students gave an award to President Muhammad Buhari, just at the eve of the 2019 elections. I found it very, very cool. I found it very troubling that an association of students, at that point in time, I think universities were under lock and key following the ASU strike. I didn't think it was right for NANS to have given award to Buhari or even meeting at the State House at that time. So I renounced my life membership of National Association of Nigerian Students and did request NANS to expunge my name from his records. So Nance is no longer in my personal records.
Well, that's interesting. I missed that. Can you really do that? What's the implication of that? Is it possible
Uh,
to undo? You were
yes,
once
yes,
president of
it
NAN.
was a it was it was a personal decision. I had heated public debate with Larry Arogun that day, and who else? One other former president, I think Bamdele Okoyeme, I can't remember now. And my position is this: is it's a personal fit. It's no longer part of my record. I've asked Nance to expunge my name from his own record that I'd never served. Well, it's an historical fact that I was once president of Nance. At the realm of verbal history, it exists. But on the record, I've asked them to expunge my name. And that's the point. It was a protest against an organization some of us spent our youth, to build and to defend its very rich history. And I found it curiously strange that young men who never had the misfortune of serving Nance. I mean, you were Nance vice president, and you can recall what our members of our generation went through building the organization and defending its history. And it wasn't a blatant for people to reduce nouns to what they today describe as scoping, granting awards, commercializing the struggle. I felt that it was not rich on my part to be connected to that organization, and that's why I asked that my name be expunged from its records.
All right. So let's get to the substance of today's conversation, which is the 2023 elections and the role of social media and influencers. We've often heard people say there are no polling stations on social media. Some of the candidates are doing very well on social media. How does that translate into votes at the end of the day? But before we get to specifics, what's your general assessment of the political situation in the country today? The party primaries that are behind us, INEC's preparation in terms of what's it called, the PVC, collection of PVC and registration of new voters. How would you assess the situation we found ourselves today?
One thing I'll say from what we have witnessed in the past 7 to 8 weeks, nothing has changed, nothing has departed from what we know as our democratic and political culture, democratic in quote and unquote. The politicians are still doing what they know best, trying to play outside the rules. The politicians are still rigging the political process in a manner that benefits them. You find politicians who mobilize influence and outlets, trying to work the political process in such a way that it benefits them. It's been part of our political culture since 1960. It hasn't changed. But what for me is more intriguing, and I think that is a change discernible observers must begin to look at, is the new number or numbers of youths that are coming out who are now investing trust in the political process and saying, hi, I think this is one process that we must participate in, who are registering for the PVCs across the length and breadth of our country. If anything gives me some level of encouragement is the number of youths that I find each day, whether online or offline, whether in the hamlets, villages of our country or in the cities. You find people coming out just to register. My fear is this: does INEC has the capacity, or if you like, the capability as well, to capture these great numbers of Nigerians who are coming out in a manner that they are not disenfranchised. I've seen speculative stories about people claiming that the numbers are huge. They don't say how and everything. A certain period of time can produce PVCs. My report is this: if you can walk into the banking halls of any bank in our country and request an ATM in 30 minutes, they produce ATM cards, and the cards are handed to you with your biometrics all captured by that small plastic card. I can't see why INEC cannot produce PVCs within the time frame allowed by the Electoral Act. If we are counting from the expiration of the 60 days that INEC has graciously extended the time for registration, we are looking at between September and October, when INEC should be rolling out these cards, to those who have registered. And the call I can make there is it's not enough for us to register. I think we have about 10 to 15 million PVCs already before this process started that were not collected. Say, if you have registered, once INEC start rolling out the cards, please go out and collect your cards. 2023 elections will be the most consequential elections in our country history. We are neck deep in the ethno-religious fractious politics that have been the hallmark of our country for 62 years of its existence, if not more. The four major presidential aspirants we have today represent the two major religions of our practice in our country, and they also represent the three major ethnic groups in our country. So in a way, we'll be having an interplay of history, religion, and ethnicity in 2023, and it's going to be consuming for politicians who are involved, and also consuming for supporters of these politicians who will be investing their time, investing their trust, investing their emotions in the whole political process. That's my initial take.
Okay. Talking about how consequential the elections would be, the importance of these elections, the fact that General Muhammad Buhari retired, who has been on the ballot in the last 4 or 5 election cycle, will not be there. And also the interest of young people in this process. Is there any hope for the country, taking into account what we know currently, the candidates? Because it's one thing to say young people should go out to vote. It's one thing to encourage young people to get their PVCs and come out to vote. But what would they be voting for? Who would they be voting for? And without going into specifics in terms of candidates, the choices available to us, is there any hope that something can really change?
If you ask me, I don't want to be pessimistic here. We've had years of pessimism under the Buhari years. It's been very difficult years for Nigerians. Our economy is in the most parlous state as we know it. Our country is just by the ropes, hanging at the cliff. If we don't get it right in 2023, we may as well be pushing our country down, down the cliff, down.
And what would getting it right? How would you describe getting it right?
How do we get it right? The four major presidential aspirants that we have at the moment are not posing alternatives that are different from the market. That are different from the market. I don't want to go into the ideological argument, but I think people are investing hope in 2023 because we have candidates who say, look at my track records, look at things I've done in the past. I've invested hope in the future. I've invested hope in today. And if you believe that tomorrow will be better than today, why don't you vote for me? I think there's a mass movement of youth around Obi who they think is investing hope in the future. You have motley of supporters of Tinubu and Atiku here and there, who are equally insistent on the fact that our candidates have a track record. They have done it in the past, they can do it again tomorrow. There are also questions about personal attributes, personal characteristics, identities, basically, of these individuals. All of these will come into play in 2023. How it works for Nigeria, where, like I said, we're already at a cliff. Any of the four who can occupy that national space begin to mobilize Nigerians around what binds us and not what divides us, begins to mobilize Nigerians against those values that we know that Nigerians do have. Values of hard work, values of believing that tomorrow is better, that tomorrow will be better than yesterday. The values of defending the integrity of the self, and also of the whole. I think these are the things that will go into 2023. These are the things that will help us to pull away from the brink. Whether we admit it or not, Buhari has pushed us down the cliff. Only that presidential candidate who has integrity, who is willing to tell Nigerians the truth, like Amika Cabral, famously said many years ago, that in the midst of hardship, just tell the people the truth. Don't tell them lies. Don't gloss facts as we know them. And as an observant and also a participant in the political process, as a political activist, I see a movement gathering around Peter Obi, and it is a groundswell. We've not seen it in no time in the history of our country. Perhaps anything close to what we are seeing today was the Hope 93 movement that was built around Chief Mahmoud Abdul and all that. So let's see how. We don't know how things will pan out, but if it pans out good for Nigeria, Nigeria will be pulling itself out of the brink. Nigerians will be reuniting themselves again. The fractious nature, the division in our country is very deep. It's very deep, and we need a presidential candidate that can reunite our people, that can say, look, we are one people. The ethnic nationalities in our country trace their origins, their histories, to one source, so we can begin to play on those uniting factors rather than the divisive factors.
Thank you very much. Before we get into what role you plan to play or you are currently playing, let's talk a little bit about yourself. Premium Times 2 days ago had this banner headline: Police invite popular social media influencer over alleged cyber stalking conspiracy. What's that about, and what's the status of the case?
I am as surprised as anybody who read that story. At about 12:37 on Monday, I was at the Court of Appeal in Makodi in Benue State when lawyers in my office phone rang me. In fact, they knew I was in court, so they sent me a WhatsApp message to tell me that a policeman is in the office to deliver, a letter. So I asked, is the letter addressed to FSC's Lex? That's our law firm. He said, no, guy is addressed to you. And I said, look, can I speak to the gentleman? He made a call to me. I walked out to the precinct of the court and I spoke to my lawyer. I spoke to the policeman. I asked him what he brought to my office. He said it was a letter of invitation. And so I instructed the lawyers in the office to receive the letter, do a screenshot of the letter and send to me. I went back into the court, and when the screenshot arrived, what you see in the media, that I'm cyber stalking somebody, harassing somebody to the extent of placing the person in psychological fear. It came to me as a shock. For those who know me, those who follow me online, 8 years or more that I've been on Twitter and to some extent on Facebook, I promote the civility of language in the public space. I insist that slurs should not be part of our public discourse. I'll be the last person to cyber stalk anybody and to place anybody in psychological fear. The intriguing thing about it is this: I had, run an argument with Peter Obi following my intervention in the judicial panels in Anambra, and I felt that he did not do enough when James Nwafo was running riot in his state when it was governor, killing young men and women from Anambra. I think we had 2 engagements on Twitter where he's explained his role, that James was a federal personnel. As a state governor, he had no control over him. I accepted his argument, and I moved on. Why am I saying this? A lot of people have asked me, why are you supporting Peter Obi against the backdrop of some of the issues you raise against? I think I'm proud to say that I'm the only lawyer in Nigeria who took the opportunity of defending NSAS victims in judicial panels across the states of the Southeast and also River State, where I recruited lawyers, to represent poor families of victims. 1 month exactly to the day when Peter moved from PDP to Labour and declared his intention to run for the presidency, I told Nigerians who were following me, about 200 and something thousand, that I'm making a special announcement on the 27th of June. Early as 27th of June, I publicly declared for Peter. I believe in him. I know his pattern. I know he has his personal integrity. Do I have a role to play in his campaign? I'm not a politician. I don't hope to be on his campaign. But
we'll come. Yeah, we'll come to that in details. So the case now. What's the update on the case?
The intriguing thing about the case, few hours after I declared for Peter, the police letter came. Many Nigerians have made connections between my declaration for Peter and the police, and Premium Times has also speculated that I've been very critical of Atiku Abubakar in the past 1 year. Yes, I'm very critical. I'm still insistent. He's too old to become president of Nigeria. His past is behind him. His past is behind him. He should allow young politicians, those who are young, to rule the roost, not ruin the roost. Wrong governance in our country. If that letter is connected to him, I don't know. My lawyers have written to the police, asking the police under Section 36(6) of the Constitution to make disclosure on the identity of the petitioner and the very substance detail. You can't say I'm cyber stalking. Who am I cyber stalking? Where, when, how? How did I place him in psychological fear? We don't have some of these details. And the police are asking me to turn up at one of the local stations in Abuja to clarify. Clarify what? I don't have details of what you're asking me to come and clarify. So we have written them. We wrote them that same Monday, and they received it the next day, which is about 6 days ago. If you exclude Saturday and Sunday, the 2 non-working days, we have not heard from the police. I know I spoke to my lawyers this morning, and they informed me that by Tuesday they will be heading, not challenging the powers of the police to issue letters of invitations to Nigerians. To issue letters of invitation, issue invitation general summons are within, is within the powers, within the general powers of the police under the combined provisions of Section 4 and 24 of the Police Act. The point we are making is that in summoning me, you must make disclosure, specific disclosure on the offense that you allege that I have committed, and that's a point. That's a point we are going to court to emphasize and to plead that there's every likelihood that my right to fair hearing will be breached by the police.
All right, thank you very much. The great oracle. We'll get into the substance of our show today, which is the role of influencers and social media itself as an avenue in terms of impact and influence on the elections that you've described as consequential. People are itching to ask questions, but let me play a few videos that speak to the role of social media and influencers, then we can then look at specific. So here, I think this has to do with Peter Obi. Let me just run this for you.
Another interesting and exciting video on my channel. Today I'll be sharing with you how P-Square, Fino, Flavor, Oga Sabinus, and a whole lot of Nigerian celebrities have shown support and have endorsed Peter Obi for the president. Okay guys, a whole lot of Nigerian celebrities have been coming out in bulk and have been showing support for him, and they have endorsed him to be the Nigerian president come the 2023 presidential election. And P-Square has come in their official Instagram accounts. Likewise, Peter and Paul Okoye, Tunde North, and they have posted him. And with all the whole presidential aspirants, believe me guys, I've gone through most of their profile and their interviews, and Peter Obi seems like the perfect candidate, even if he's coming from a party that is not well known. But all these years we've been voting for PDP and APC, we are voting for party. What good has it done for us? It has absolutely done nothing for us. We voted PDP. PDP has been in power for 16 years. APC came, okay, we said let us strive for a change, and with APC was the worst of them all. And who better than Peter Obi to come out and deliver us from this mess? The man is very brilliant. I've been watching a lot of his videos and his interviews. He's not just saying just to talk. Whatever he's saying, he's giving you fact and figures, telling you this, telling you that, go to so date, go to so place and go and check. This is what I did. This is what I did.
Okay, that's one. Specifically on Peter Obi, there is another calling young people to come out to vote.
Youth in politics, youth in politics. The time is now. Now we need our own leader.
Many Nigerians youth celebrity have taken it upon themselves to come out and.
This is a matter of life. This is a matter of our success in this country. Get your voter's card. It's high time we you to stand up. If there's no youth in politics, man, I don't think we are doing it. So any government that's ready to take over should be ready to support the youth. And that is the government we support. Youth in politics tomorrow is now.
Fellow Nigerian youths, my name is Fraud. And I come before you today to tell you it is high time the Nigerian youths are involved in today's politics. We have on our database 9.6 million youth voters who are ready to come out and stand against the incessant rants and the torments that we're experiencing in the hands of our leaders today. You can see what is happening in our system. We get bullied, we get shut down of everything we want to be involved in. But it is high time we say no, we're going to move. So therefore, I implore you, if you have your own PVC, your voter's card, it is time for you to join the youths in politics. The time is now. Tomorrow is now. We move.
Okay, so that's you. Then there is another one we have here. I think this is for the Tinubu.
Pẹ̀lú àtìlẹ́yìn Ọlọ́run àti àfọwọ́sowọ́pọ̀ ọmọ Nàìjíríà rere. Ipò ààrẹ orílẹ̀-èdè Nàìjíríà yìí. Ó ti ṣeé ṣe. Ó dẹ̀ dá wa lójú wípé. Ìtẹ̀síwájú ọ̀tún á dé borílẹ̀-èdè wa. Nítorí kíni. Aṣáájú kájẹ. Akíkanjú ni. Ọ̀mọ̀wé ni. Pẹ̀lú ìrírí tó péye. Ìmọ̀ àti òye.
Láti darí àwa ọmọ Nàìjíríà.
Dé ilẹ̀ ìlérí.
Araba ní bàbá.
Ẹni abálábà ní bàbá. Aṣíwájú Bọ́lá Ahmed Tinubu ni. Òun gangan ni. Òun ló kọ̀.
Nítorí wípé òun ló tó gbangba sùn lọ́yẹ́. Aṣíwájú Bọ́lá
Ahmed Tinubu. Akànbí. Ọmọ olódò dẹ. Jìjàgàbá. Tinubu for president.
Ohun ọ̀run ti gbọ́, ó ti rí bẹ́ẹ̀, ó ti ṣẹ bẹ́ẹ̀.
This message is from the League of Actors 2023.
All right, back to you, Mahmoud. What are we seeing here? One newspaper describes it as 2023, Atiku Tinubu Obi divide celebrities. Is there a sense in which, when you look at this, you find out that there is support along ethnic lines or religious lines? What's your general assessment? We'll still come back to specifics, but what would you describe the endorsement by social media influencers and celebrities, actors and actresses?
It's an intriguing thing, but it's not novel. It's not novel. We saw this play out in 2015, 2014, 2015, when the intriguing thing, celebrities, social media influencers, who insisted on occupying the streets in 2012, decided to support a former military general whose performances in office while he was a president in the mid 80s were not stellar, whose post office performances did not show that he saw Nigeria from the prism of one country. So in a way, what we have here are one, individuals trying to peddle their influences. Two, individuals trying to promote their personal preferences and interests, and hoping that the hold that they have on the public, these influences, interests, personal interests, preferences will work on that hold. It worked in 2015. It worked in 2015. to the extent that the rug of the social media, to put in that metaphorical sense, was swept from the feet of Dr. Jonathan in 2015. But that is not what we are seeing today. That's not what we are seeing today. The Nigerian social media landscape has been arrested by an organic movement that describes itself as the obedient movement. So it's difficult for social media influencers, celebrities and artists to graft themselves into that social media space and do what they did in 2015. So in 2022, we are in a different political terrain as it relates to social media. And if for anything less, like I've said, I'm sure you listened to one of my presentations the other time on the virtual conference of the University of Michigan. The Nigerian social media landscape is both facilitative and dispositional. Facilitative in the sense that the social media in itself renders or lends itself out, to agencies of citizens, active citizens, who take the place as a structure for announcing their own will, expressing their will to power, their power to act, their power to do something, and their power to say something. So what we are seeing now is the revolution of the citizens who have seized the social media space and have turned the social media space against celebrities and influencers. People who occupy the Twitter space have become influencers themselves. No one single individual can claim that I'm goading, I'm mobilizing, I'm promoting one individual because it is my preference, it is my interest. You see an organic movement building within that social media space. And if for anything, it has shown that facilitative character of the social media space and dispositional, because you see a lot of people who are disposed to promoting integrity, seeking to shut out, presidential aspirants that they believe represent the old, that they believe are dated, that they believe, that their future is already in the past. It's already in the past. And I'm sure you're on Twitter, you're on Facebook, you see what the organic movement, the obedient are doing. And big time as we're moving towards 2023, some of these big social media influencers will suffer as they are suffering at the moment.
So, in your own estimation, how much can we depend, and when I say we, I mean the country and the electoral process, can we depend on these influencers, and how much positive vibe do you think this influence is and can bring to bear on the possible outcome of the electoral process?
Yeah, but my approach to all of these, Chido, is this. Not much has been discussed or written about the social media space at the level of theory. There's a lack of understanding of the disposition of facilitative realities in which the Nigerian social media poses, social media space poses. And three, because the Nigerian social media lends itself out as structure, people with agency, power, with will, with action, seize that space, for the purpose of articulating what is best for them. If you take all of these three characteristics, except the first, not much research has been done on the power of social media as it relates to elections in our country. But we can make deductions from 2015, and we can also make deductions from 2019. In 2015, we had 60% of social media users in our country supporting General Muhammad Buhari. So in a way, the use of social media was effective in the context of organization and mobilization, and we saw the results. We saw how difficult it was for PDP and Jonathan to grab themselves into that social media space. In 2019, we saw 70% of social media users, queuing behind Alhaji Atiku Abubakar, mobilizing, organizing, facilitating wills, power, actions around the candidacy of of Atiku. But victory did not happen for him in 2019. Perhaps it is not lack of power of the social media space that made victory not to happen for Atiku. Perhaps those who exercise real power, real sovereign power, use the democratic and political system to their advantage, that the umpire did not call what he should have called. That's my personal opinion. So that's why I say not much research has been done as regards the power of the social media space. But if you look at the inherent power of the social media space itself, and I always insist on this, the space is empty, the space is void. When people click, when people go on the virtual interactions and the interconnecting spaces all meet within that Twitter space, they people it, they feel it, the space becomes less void, becomes less empty, and all that. That power that is inherent in the space itself becomes disposed to the people. So the people use the space to articulate and amplify their voices, as we are seeing with the obedient, with the obedient organic movement. But because citizens come into that space with their own power, with their own agency. So you will not have duality of power, the agency of citizens and the power of the space itself. Two powers meeting and congregating, two powers, providing some sort of power of actualizations for themselves and of balance. And that is what I think the obedient movement is doing now. But can they translate that power, move that power away from that virtual space into the real world where it's expected that the power will count? Like I always say, the excess of power in the virtual space is fiction. Because when I sit here, I'm sitting somewhere in Abuja, I'm online. I've not physically moved from my home, but I've occupied a space on the social media space. My power is both inherent with me as I'm sitting, and my power is also inherent in that space that I've occupied in the social media space. So there's always movement, from the virtual to the physical. When people move from the virtual back to the physical, they exercise their power. So when people say, look, there are no police stations, on the virtual space. Yes, there's no police in the virtual space because you don't see the police station. It's intangible. But the police station exists as a power of policing, of arresting that citizens exercise. When they move from that virtual space to the physical and they exercise that power, we see the result. Our hope is that citizens will move away from the virtual space that they occupy. It's a fiction. They occupy no space. But the theory of articulation supposes that when you move there, you occupy the space. But they are physically where they are. Where you are in Abuja is a polling unit. You have that power to walk to that polling unit and exercise your power. That is what those who do not see the anger that our youths are expressing today will be shocked when they will be hit. In 2023, like you said, and I've also affirmed it. Ethnicity, religion have both become a problem, and I find it, I find it strange that celebrities from a certain stock of our country could decide to use certain language to promote their candidate. There's signifier in politics, there's signification. What it tells me is this guy is our own, he's Yoruba, we are supporting him. So we are deploying the language that we use as signifier for that, for that support. So these are the little intangible things we must look out for in 2023 that may undermine that convergence within the national space. I may be biased here because I publicly declared my support for Peter Obi. I'm seeing that convergence within that national space. People from the southeast, from the south-south, from the southwest, from the northeast, northwest, north central, converging within a national space that has become virtual. How we transpose that virtual national space into a physical space is something the OB movement must work on as they move forward to 2023. But I must stress this fact: Obi is of the Igbo stock. I'm Afema from Edo State. I believe in him. I believe in his capacity of pulling our country from the brink. What this shows is that we have Nigeria who want to be these of ethnicity and religion that have arrested us for years.
Okay, thank you very much. Now that you've spoken about Obi and Obedient and your belief in him, let's ask specific questions. What's your involvement with the Obi movement? When or how did you come about endorsing him, and what's your expectation going forward?
It was a personal decision I took. I had a small family meeting with my I had a small meeting with my family. I have a very small family, wife and 3 children.
That's not small.
Yeah, well, and for some of us who have the misfortune of living 2 lives, one in our country, the other life abroad, has been a challenge. You're working to sustain your family elsewhere, simply because by accident of life you had the opportunity of staying elsewhere and raising a family, and one decided to return back to one's country to help to build and rebuild the country, and nothing seems to work. So as a family, we decided to pitch our tent, pitch our camp with Peter Obi. I make no illusions. I have no illusions about the candidacy of Peter Obi. He does not represent some of the core ideological beliefs as I hold, as a leftist, as a socialist. But in the context of rescuing our country, look, the goals for rescuing our country today are national, and
Can you hear us? Since yes. Hello.
I'm back. Can you hear me?
Okay, we can hear you now. Yes.
Yeah, we have to play our politics within the parameters of our nationhood. I've met Peter Obi twice. I think when I had my head challenges, and I was always traveling to and fro, Nigeria and London. I flew twice with him, and I only saw him when we landed in Abuja, a lone figure, a governor, queuing with us at the conveyor belts of the airport to retrieve his luggage. I was fascinated with him, fascinated by him, enamored by a personal principle that I live for, and a public servant exhibiting it in the public space. I'm not familiar. I wasn't familiar with him. I merely greeted him. We shook hands. Engaged Obi in one of the periods that we met. Obi is a Kusili who I knew, and who knows me. So that's that. All I'm doing is because I am an active citizen. I'm interested in what becomes of my country in 2023. I think I have a voice. It's not a voice of compulsion. If you decide to support Atiku, fair and good, it's your choice. I have no problem with that. If you decide to support Kwankwanso, no problem with that. If you decide to support Alaji Tinubu, that's fine. We are political animals. It's inherent in our nature to make our decisions, take our choices. But the point I continue to stress is this: the choice we make today will be the determinants of the type of future that we hope to enjoy tomorrow. In terms of the presidential race, Peter is a greenhorn. Peter is a greenhorn. Yeah. I do not see him as a candidate of trial and error. He has managed a state in southeast of Nigeria, a state with the same contradictions that Nigeria has, a state that had the same security challenges that Nigeria is facing today. Though people who have problem with the way he handled some of the security challenges in Anambra State, for example, I have a problem with it, as is many governors across our state, across our country, who choose to address the problems of kidnapping with sledgehammer. You arrest a kidnapper without recourse to the law. You bring the kidnapper's abode, even if it's the property of his parents, down. And I have a problem. Perhaps because it sits with my core belief as a believer of the rule of law. But in terms of his economic nuances, his political approaches to governance, his belief in one Nigeria, and more importantly, I always stress this point to you, Chido. I'm of the minority at the national level. I'm of the minority in Edo State. I'm from a minority tribe in Edo State. In my local government in Sako West, I'm in a minority. In my community, South EBA in Isako West, I'm in minority. So everywhere, I'm a minority. So if I see political systems skewed in such a manner that it places the minorities in the disadvantage, that fighting aspect of me would want to take sides with the oppressed. I feel Southeast Nigeria, the Igbo nation, have not had a stake, in the political governance of our country. 2023 provides us the opportunity of laying down forever the ghost of the Civil War. Rudolph, it's nice seeing you. Welcome back.
Nice. Thank you so much. I'm so sorry I missed this wonderful conversation, but thank you for joining us.
All right. So now that maybe Rudolph, we have just about 6-7 minutes before we bring the audience. I was going to ask you the question about whether your support for Peter Obi has anything to do with the need for justice, equity, considering what you said about
absolutely, Chido. What I'm doing now was what I did in 2019 for Alhaji Abubakar Atiku. I was not in his campaign. I spent money. I moved around the country. I was on social media 24 hours, articulating his program, stomping his views, on the virtual space. In 2015, I did all that for President Jonathan. I was more strident in 2015 because I felt that look, yes, Jonathan had power by default, but you cannot take power away from a region that produces what we survive on as our country. And the fact that we're a southern minority, look, we ought not to have been in this nation if not the fact that our nationhood was cooked in 1958 with the British colonial government setting up a process that allowed for the entrenchment of the fundamental right provisions in the 1960 Constitution. Southern minorities, particularly minorities of the Niger Delta, were concerned about their future in the Nigerian nation. So when we flip it, we see how the country was built on a tripod, and today, there is an exchange, or we have exchanges of power between Hausa, Fulani, Yoruba, sidestepping the third of the tripod. He raises the question of equity and justice, and I think if for once, let us recognize that there's a third that makes that tripod. southeast of Nigeria. Power should go there, and Obi represent that demand. As a South Southerner, I support him for equity. And from South Nigeria, we had 4 years plus 1, 5, of Jonathan being the president of Nigeria. Look, the big ethnic groups in our country must recognize the fact that the ghost of 1960 to 1970 hasn't been buried. This is one opportunity we should avail ourselves and tell the Igbos, you are part of our nation. And if we do that, we'll scupper that movement, that independent peoples of Biafra movement that is growing in the South, is scupper it for good. And that is what I'm not seeing in the political class, because the political class is machinated in such a way that it is ethnic, it is driven by the supremacist ideology of a section of our country.
All right, thank you very much. I have 2 questions, but now that my co-host is here and is looking very handsome, let me allow him to come in. And
I have no question. I wanted to say that it's a holiday weekend here in America, and we are marking independence of the United States, and the way they say it here, they are still working to have a more perfect union. In Nigeria, on the other hand, is the structure is still not there. I mean, to build, people believe that what we currently have, I don't know if you touched that topic because I've been on the road, what we currently have is not enough to carry the nation. It's not strong enough to carry the nation. And that this process that we are going through, this election process, will not produce anything that will strengthen that. I don't know if you touched on that while I was away. I didn't listen to everything you said, but being that I know you are from the left side, how do you answer that, the people who make that argument?
It's a strange thing. I've had conversations with 2 or 3 of my leftist friends who expressed worry that as a leftist, I declared for a bourgeois Nigerian politician, a trader, as they described him. What we have today in our country is not ideological warfare. We must make that clear, because the so-called bourgeois that we talk about are not fighting the classical class war against the ordinary man and woman of our streets. By accident of operation, what they do affects the poor of our country. Is it a
Okay, I think his system is frozen.
His network frozen. Yeah, we've been having that challenge. It's coming back. So, for those of us in the audience who would like to ask questions, turn on your camera.
Yeah, is it a class war? My understanding of the literature on class war does not tell me that. You are right. Like I noted in the course of our presentation. 2023 will be consequential to the future of our country. If you look at the length and breadth of our country, you have separatist movement in operation in the southeast. You have bandits, kidnappers in northern Nigeria. The southwest and the south are not faring better. Like I've constantly pushed up in public space, my homeland, Afema, in Edo State, is suffering the heat of kidnappers and bandits and all that. How we center some of these issues as part of the subject of democratic discourse, for 2023. Is for the politicians and also for Nigerians. How do we reunite our people? At the cosmetic level, I think that a victory for a Southern presidential candidate would move Southerners who are already moving away from the center back to the center. Say here we have two Southern candidates, Tinubu and Obi. If either of the northern candidates, Atiku or Kwakwanso is Hausa, Atiku Fulani, wins, I see vast areas of the South moving away. They've already moved away from the center, holding down to their ethnic cocoon that they already have, and people questioning the basis of our existence as a country. So it's our collective interest to manage our divisions. That politician who can manage it very well, who can pull people back to the center, to the middle of the national space, will help us in pulling us away from the brink. We're already there. Just a gunshot will throw everybody down the cliff. But like I said, the language you would deploy in the public space, the civility of our politics, the concreteness of our programs, as they touch on the lives of ordinary Nigerians, will tell us if we are really keen in moving away from the separatist standpoint we find ourselves and back to the uniting national space that we should be. Like I keep saying, of the four candidates that parade themselves at the moment, only Peter Obi exemplify all of this, unfortunately or fortunately.
All right, thank you. Finally, before we bring in the audience, what are your expectations as a social media influencer, someone who engages the public regularly on social media? What will you be saying to your followers? And then what do you think is the reality in terms of an Obi presidency, considering all that is the opposition, for want of a better word, against him?
My expectations are all of this. That one, INEC should be neutral, transparent, honest with Nigerians. Two, I describe them the axis of evil. The axis of evil. INEC, army, and police should play no partisan political role in 2023 elections. If they don't, with the anger Nigerian youths are expressing now, I see real revolution in 2023. Peter Obi symbolizes that revolution. Unfortunately, the first revolution we attempted to have in 1993 was aborted. Was symbolized by a bourgeois billionaire Nigerian, and we're having the second revolution in prospect, and it's also symbolized or exemplified by a billionaire Nigerian politician. If the axis of evil does not play its usual role, and Nigerian youths push their anger through, I see an Obi presidency coming into reality in 2023. If you flip it, if INEC decide to do what it did in 2023, rig the national elections for the ruling party, if the police and the army choose to be actively involved as partisans, I see APC winning the 2023 elections. In fact, before the first ballot is cast, they have already won. If INEC and the other two connecting part of the axis of evil decide to play its role. If you look at our country today, 12 states in the north are unstable, and close to 6 states, the entire states in the southeast, are unstable. We see military movements into that region. APC has the capacity under this cloud to announce results. We saw it in Borno, in Yobe in 2019, when Borno, that was under terrible assault of terrorists, produced over 800,000 votes for the ruling party. Same thing in Yobe State. We know what is happening in the Kardashian states, Kebbi, Kaduna, Katsina, under terrible attacks. Same thing in 2019. Katsina produced 1.3 million votes for Muhammadu Buhari. If the axis of evil plays its act and become deeply partisan before we cast the first vote, APC has already won. I'm conscious of this, and that's why I'm in the media space, educating people. We are not campaigning for Obi to post the fact that we ran, to tell Nigerians that we are a force for the future. We're in need to win. I've analyzed it in my media space. If the axis of evil does not play its role, and every presidential candidate holds his ground, and Obi moves slightly away from the southeast, holds the south-south region where I come from, and a part of north central, which is capable of doing, I see Nigeria going to run off in 2023. And if Obi can pull a runoff, you know, he will beat whoever he runs against in 2023. You know, all these are highfalutin, ambitious dreams, but the figures, you know, the figures are there, the numbers are there, driven by the new numbers of youths who are in the street daily, building structures across our country. People say the Labour Party does not have structure, you know. But you know, as I do, you know, that we are connected to the Labour Party. You know, when Nigerian politicians say, look, your party has no structure, what it means that your party does not have access to state resources, We admit Obi's movement has no structure in terms of access to state resources. But we have the heart and minds of conscious Nigerians who are tired of this nonsense. You know, you are a Dr. Chido, Rudolph is a doctor. You ought not to be abroad. We ought to be in our country and build our country. Like I tell people, this is the last opportunity for our generation to throw the dice. I'm 50, I'll be 54 this year. In another 8 years, if APC wins, I'm close to my retirement, to my retirement age. Chido, I know you are slightly older than me, so you are getting closer to the departure launch. This is wild opportunity, departure launch, quote and unquote, departure launch in terms of retirement and all that. This is one last opportunity for our generation to hold hands with this younger generation and see if we can rescue our country. And it's doable.
Thank you very much. I'll hand over to Rudolph now. Ask your question, then bring in the audience.
No, we are going to bring in, but I wanted to just calm down the oracle, because, you know, your age can be changed the way that they've been changing their ages, the people in power, so you don't have to worry about I
can reduce my age.
And you can even change the name.
But we'll see what nature is doing to them now.
Yeah, exactly.
You can even reduce your heights in Nigeria.
Anyway, let's take a 10 seconds break, and then we bring in our audience members who are waiting. And when they come in, then we can have the conversation continue. Unfortunately, I hold on. Okay, just a minute. All right, so we have some of our people joining us, and I'm assuming that they have questions or comments for you. Ejikeme, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Rudolph.
And
I'm glad to be here.
Ovia, welcome to the show.
Good morning, sir.
So you guys have a privilege of talking to the great oracle. It doesn't happen every time. So, I'll start with you, Obi. What do you want to say?
Sorry, before Obi comes in, next time you are, please have a check for the subliminal ad, political ads that you do on this show. It's the show is seen around the world, and you are promoting your candidates.
I promise by the time we move into Asura 2023, I will.
You invite the show to interview your president.
Now you are talking. I'll bring in people before then. I'm okay on it. Mr. Abdul Mohammed. I think we have a lot in common. I'm also from the minority of the minority. I'm from Ososo in Akoko Edo local government of Edo State, very close to where you're from too.
You are a deeper minority than I am.
Yes. So there are minorities within minorities.
Very
minorities, yeah.
Yes, I have a lot of comment, but let me just go through the question. Maybe since it's only two of us, we'll have time to interact further. My first question.
Don't stay too long, because certainly more people will be. There are more people waiting.
Oh, okay. Just two questions here, very short. Do you believe Obi joining Konkoso as his running mates within the next couple of days, because the closing period is on the 15th? And again, do you believe that 2023 election is going to be about the union versus the separatists? Separatists now, I don't just mean the Southeast, cut across the Oduduwa nations too. So
okay.
It will be the union versus the separatists, and you believe we'll be joining Konkoso as the day progresses?
Okay, let's. So, do you want to take the question, or you want to get the other one? Then we answer the two together.
Yeah, let me hear from Ejikeme.
Ejikeme, okay, Ejikeme, go ahead.
Okay. Thank you very much. I must first say, Chido, Rudolph, for inviting me and giving me the opportunity. Hello, Abdul, Mahmoud.
Oh, thanks.
Nice.
Yeah. Good evening or good afternoon, good morning, wherever you are. First, I have two questions. When I saw your profile, I decided to dig a little bit deeper into your personality because I didn't know much about you. I thought I knew about Nigerian cyberspace, but you didn't quite appear in my radar that much. So I found out you were born in Bauchi. Am I right?
You're right.
And you went to University of Jos. And you're a massive social media influencer. I've kind of gathered in the past few minutes that I've been on the show. And I've been dipping in and out and reading about you. And you also live abroad, or you live in Abuja. Okay, so I believe your placenta is buried in Bauchi State, like they say. So you have a foothold in the north, as in Bauchi, and also you went to university in Jos. So I believe you still have contacts there. I'm just hoping you can. You still have those contacts, and I hope you can help us feel the pulse of the people on the ground in those parts of northern Nigeria. How is the Obi movement faring? Are there boots on the ground also? Or is it just online? That's my first question. The second question is this. Considering the fact that many people opposed to Obi, both in the PDP, like Dino and Reno Mokri, and APC, like some of the Western celebrities have done recently, have played the ethnic card or the identity politics. Ovia plays it here too. You can review some of his past videos if you haven't already. So that is rife in the Nigerian political campaign space, especially online, so to say. And I believe that is also going on the ground. You have openly declared for the Obi movement, like so many youths in Nigeria. I'm just asking if is there any advice you can give the Obi movement on how to avoid all efforts to lure them into this, sex pit of ethnic-based campaign? And what's your advice on how to keep it issue-based, like they have so far, You know, Obi's campaign movement is made of individuals with their own emotions. You see, so someone, because they are trying hard to lure them into that.
Okay, educate me around that, please.
Yeah. So, what's your advice? What's the advice you can give them from the outside, considering that they're watching now? I'm sure they watch this show as well. How they can avoid falling into that trap? Thank you.
Okay. Let me come in here, Rudolph. I will start with the first question by my brother from Ososo in the northwest of Edo State. Do you believe in Obi joining Kwakwanso? Well, 4 or 5 weeks ago, at the birth of Obi, the obedient movement, I did canvass the point that some sort of alliance between Kwakwanso and Obi will hit terribly at the underbelly of the Nigerian political class, disrupt the class itself. Do I now believe that an alliance is possible? The obedient movement has grown. It has seized hamlets and acres of spaces across central Nigeria, southern and central Nigeria, and to some extent, northeastern states like Gombe, like Gombe State. And the Kwakwansiya movement, traditionally rooted, in the north, particularly in the northwest, has not grown much beyond its traditional base. Do I believe that both will come into some sort of alliance going to 2023? I do not think so. I'm not only thinking so. Let me be emphatic in my answer. An alliance won't happen. It will not happen. In fact, discussions so far have hit the rock. What will happen will be both presidential candidates pursuing their individual political and presidential ambitions, for 2023. The hope is that the Kwakwansiya movement will grow to become the hitman in the north, and narrow the spread of APC and PDP within the north. And the obedient movement will also do same in the south. With central Nigeria holding the key. I've always said that the presidential candidate that will have upper hand in 2023 will be determined by whoever can control Benue Plateau, Niger, Kwara, Kogi, and to some extent Taraba states. Taraba is in the northeast. From what I see, what I've seen from Benue State, and what my very good friend from the student movement, my younger friend from the student movement is doing, Hema Hembe, we see some traction, some movement of the Labour Party, the obedient movement in Benue State, and also in Plateau State. But for the obedient movement to have some replication, look, I'm not too interested about the core Islamic north of northwest and some part of the northeast. If you like, try to sell ice to Eskimo, in those areas. They will not buy. That's the truth. That's the truth about it. But how do we play on the basis of issues, on the basis of programs, on the basis, look, we cannot run away from it. What will determine central Nigeria's participation in this political process is how they can be rescued from the oppression and repression that they face in central Nigeria. In central repression, religion, ethnic dominance are issues in the Middle Belt. Middle Belt loosely used as as a political base. North Central as as a geography, and let nobody pigeonhole Obi's campaign. Obi's campaign is not separatist. As a matter of fact, Obi's presidency or presidential ambition is a death knell to the IPOB movement. And whether you admit it or not, with the level of insecurity in the Southeast, you see people coming out en masse to participate in registering for PVC. Don't forget that it was this same process that led to the killing of INEC officials and some Nigerians who were taking part in the registration. Southeasterners are braving their life, coming out to register, which sounds some sort of death knell to the IPOB movement. But the movement can only be buried if Obi's presidential ambition is transformed into victory in 2023. And some of the underlying issues that have created divisions among Nigerians, are addressed not only by political class, but by Nigerians. It is in our enlightened self-interest for us to address these deep divisions that we are facing. I think partly too, I've answered your question. It's 23 a prayer about union and and separatists. I think it's about the union of Nigeria. It's not about the unity of Nigeria. Atiku is talking of unity, that is unifier. Obi is talking of moving Nigeria back to the national space that we know it. And as I say, Obi is the Obidifier. A new word in the new strict dictionary. Tinubu is also doing same, reaching to his friends in the north and all that, trying to create or re-establish a bridge between the progressive southwest that he represents and the conservative north and all that. So everybody is talking about unity, but unity is a verb. It's a verb. Unity is a verb. It's about action. It's about what you do. It's about what you say. It's about what your supporters do, what your supporters say. We've seen dirty politics, just 2 months into a long haul of a presidential campaign. People planting strange beans as registered users of Twitter to push slurs that are ethnic in nature, that are insulting, coming from the obedient movement. People describe the obedient movement as a movement of mob. But you see, once you have a movement that is organic, that is whose members are not recruited on the basis of individual mobilization and recruitment. All shades of people come into the movement. The ability of the central leadership of the movement to draw everybody into line, whip everybody into line is important. Like I always do on my social media space, if you abuse, if you insult, if you throw slurs at me or people expressing themselves on my timeline, I will remove you. I will block you. I encourage people to be civil. If Ejikeme decides to support Kwakwanso or my friend from also supporting the Kwakwanso, it's his choice. I have no problem with it. Nigerians, look, that you support Kwakwanso, I support Obi, and Chido supports, Tinubu, for example, does not make less of us as Nigerians. We're still Nigerians. We will still remain Nigerians after 2023. After all, I had friends in 2015 who had become ethnicists because I supported Jonathan Goodluck. My friends from northern Nigeria, you were supporting Buhari, and you were accusing me of being ethnicist for supporting Jonathan Goodluck. But for some of them, we've made fences, we've restituted our friendship. We are back again, and that's the spirit. After division, when the result will be declared the morning of February 27 or 28, if we follow record 3 days after presidential elections, results will be declared and all that, we'll shake hands, we'll try to rebuild our country again. Look, Nigeria is a great country. It will become greater if we make the right choice. And I keep saying it, Peter Obi is that right choice.
All right, thank you.
All right, we really don't have much time, and we have a number of people who are waiting. And before you bring them in, somebody sent me, a professor from the United Kingdom, sent a question to you, Abdul Mahmoud, which I posted there. She said, my question is as regard the first principle. It is great to ask INEC not to be partisan. Can we insist that they uphold the standards? How can they permit the candidate whose certification is in doubt, who employs staff whose identity is not clear? So just take note of that when you answer the next round. Rudolph, sorry, back to you.
Okay, Femi, welcome to the show. It's your turn. Any question for the Oracle?
Let's make it quick, please.
Just to say, the Oracle hasn't answered my question, has he?
I thought he did.
What's advice? I thought I did. Is the Obi movement online? I said offline. I said yes. They have their boots in Benue State. They have their boots in Plateau State. I've seen the growing stomping of boots in Gombe State. The responses of locals in Taraba is responses of locals in Taraba are massive. I've not seen sparks of light in the core Islamic states of the northwest and the northeast. And am I disappointed? I'm not. Like I said in my opening remarks here, 2023 will be ethno-religious. How the major presidential aspirants hold their regions will determine what will happen in 2023. But the guy who can slightly move out of his region and occupy some patch of the national space, whether in the North Central, will take it by a hair's breadth. We were returning back to 1979, where Shagari won with just 33% of total vote cast. So we might end up having a runoff in 2023, the way things are going.
Thank you very much.
All right, Femi, you can ask your question.
Yeah. Good morning. Good afternoon, everyone. Mr. Rudolph, I've been looking forward to talking to you for a while. The first and last time I met you was when we all had that protest. Remember that protest we had at the Nigerian embassy in New York for the fuel scarcity? But anyways, that's on the side. So to Mr. Mahmoud, nice meeting you, by the way. First time here too.
Nice meeting you as well.
Yes, sir. So it turns out that we share something similar in terms of the fact that I was also born in North Kaduna, specifically. And I continue to tell people that sometimes if you've not lived a situation, just looking outside in, you think you know what you know, but you do not know what you know as well. Whilst we were growing up, I would remember when some of my uncles, some of whom were in the armed forces, and some of my parents' friends from the South, from the North, I remember some conversations they had from when Shagari was president, and even before some of us were born as well. And when I play back the way things are now, and I look back to way back then and even before, again, we were born, I realized that similarly has been some pattern that's been ingrained, even as far back as when the Britons were living, which continues till today. Now, my basic question to you is, do you actually think that we're actually going to achieve any form of normality, even with Obi, who I personally think is the best of the bunch? I think let's try something new, basically, if you will. And I think this way is common across that I can relate to. For example, do you think that there's any chance, iota of chance, that is even Obi or Kwankwaso or any other person that gets there, even if they mean well, with the way Nigeria is structured? I hate to be pessimistic, but do you think that because there's people that are controlling, whether we like it or not, there's some people that think they own Nigeria. Do you think they would allow him to do what he needs to do? That's my question, basically.
Well, it's a tough one. Chido, can you repeat the question by the professor from England? I didn't get you because I lost the connection.
Okay. So she's saying that my question is as regard the first principle. It is great to ask INEC not to be partisan, and I think she was alluding to when you talked about the axis of evil. And that's a very interesting stake and spin on the elections. I think it's a word or a phrase or term that we need to play up. But she's saying that it's great to ask INEC not to be partisan, but can we insist that they uphold the standards? How can they permit the candidates whose certification is in doubt? And she goes on to ask, do you employ staff whose identity is not clear? So I think the point she's trying to make is about people, the whole drama around people's certificate. Does INEC have the power to disqualify candidates that they think, or should they disqualify candidates that they think do not show concrete evidence that they have the relevant certification? But before you go on, do we have Mike on?
Yeah, let me take the last one.
Okay.
There's a lacuna on the Electoral Act in respect of who exercises power, to disqualify. The law that guides the electoral process, Electoral Act, has taken that power away from INEC. The only candidates INEC can disqualify from taking part in the electoral process are candidates who are taking part in local elections in FCT. Don't forget that it's INEC that organizes the FCT local elections. I think under Section 24 or thereabout, I've forgotten the sections of INEC, is only who the individuals who ran in the party primaries of presidential candidates that can, on the basis of the Electoral Act, approach, the court, clothed with the powers
Okay. INEC is listening.
INEC.
The other axis.
So
we lost it.
So now it's only candidates who ran on the platform of parties with presidential aspirants that can approach the court. But there's also a saving grace. If you look at the qualifications for the office of the president and all that, if a presidential candidate XYZ does not meet the qualifications outlined by the Constitution, active citizen who can show sufficient interest, can approach a high court to ask the high court, declare this individual as not qualified for this reason and this reason. But INEC on its own, sworn motu, as lawyers say, cannot exercise that power under the Electoral Act. But for me, I'm not prejudging INEC here. The records we have seen of all the presidential aspirants, all the presidential candidates, they meet the threshold qualification set out, I think, the 5th schedule of the Constitution and all that. You see, look, the presidency of Nigeria is a home designed for the illiterate. It's a place of power designed for the illiterate. What the Constitution requires is that you show evidence that you went through primary school. That is the minimum. I recall at the 2014 National Conference, when we debated some of these issues, I moved the motion for insertion of a new provision in
Told you, man. Playing with INEC, man. Stop playing with INEC. Now, only when it comes to INEC question, the thing they see. So,
oh dear.
Sorry,
the great oracle.
You must have first degree for you to run. Yeah, when we went blank for you to run as president of Nigeria. That motion was defeated at the national conference. So, do I think that there will be some normality in 2023? Look, I'm supporting Obi because Obi has invested hope in our country. He's giving me hope of tomorrow. That PO is civil. What it means is that tomorrow is possible. You know, tomorrow is possible. All we need, we are at the heart of abnormality because governance has failed in our country. Government has collapsed. Our institutions of state, you know, have gone 70 years backwards because of the inadequacy of one man, General Muhammad Buhari. If we can produce a leader, a president who can re-strengthen the nation state, who can make the nation state stronger as it is now, you know, there is some sense that will return to normality in 2023. Look at the Northeast, look at what happened in Shiroro, ragtag bandits, terrorists, mauling, maiming, killing, and soldiers, and they are what they are because we had a general who was there for 6-7 years as chief of army staff, who stole all resources that were meant for buying sophisticated arms for members of Nigerian armed forces. So we have our armed forces with their arms tied to their backs, and we're asking them to go and face people with superior firepower. Under a new presidency, this will not happen. Because look, the institutions of state, are taking a cue from a president that is intellectually inadequate. So going forward to 2023, I believe strongly that normalcy, some semblance of normalcy, it will take time. Let us not make things too illusory that Nigerians will believe that the possibility tomorrow will happen in 3 months. It will not happen in 3 months. The country has been ruined by Buhari. Our country has been run aground. It will take some years for us to float the ship of our state again. And as for the axis of evil, we'll continue to insist. My criticism of Peter Obi, and I will say it here, if he's listening, if he's watching, look, if you want to disrupt a political order, you wear the activist garb. It's not wearing that. It's not shouting. It should be energizing the supporters. We saw 2 weeks ago people attacking Nigerians who came out to register to vote. Talks and louds were sent into our street to stop them. We know who is doing this. Obi should be active in the political space. He should be pressing the neck of INEC, pressing the neck of the nation state to protect young SARS who have just
told you, INEC, stay away from INEC.
There is a sense in which it seems you are right. I don't know, each time he mentions INEC.
And he went as far to say the nation state. No. I think it's bad.
Yeah, we have to end now. We are almost 10 minutes. 10 minutes beyond.
I get one more question for him.
You wanted to ask a question, Ovie.
Yes.
What is it? Quickly. I hope he's listening.
I kind of agree with him when he said that if the election is going to go, into the second round, that has been my permutation. But now, from his analysis, it seems to see that Konkoso has the upper hand in the north, while Obi so far has the upper hand in the south. So if the election should go that way between Konkoso and Obi, knowing how the political this thing is square against the south in general, don't you think that is a win-win already for the north? Can you hear me, sir?
Can I add a follow-up to that?
Yeah, please, Femi, quickly.
Yeah, so the follow-up is personally I still do not trust the system, which is what the premise of my original question was based upon. Because without like it or not, like there's still some people that believe they own their country, their country. And my fear and my grouse with even the way things still are is when if you go back to when the Electoral Act was being formulated, you recall that there's still an aspect of it that they refused to President Buhari refused to like sign into law, which for me would have been probably at least gotten us closer to 100% assurance that every at least virtually every holes have been plugged. So I mean I don't know what Mr. Mahmoud thinks about this opinion or I still feel that I'm still not confident that it's not going to rig things. Let me just be that way. Either way, yeah.
Mr. Mahmoud, did you get my question? Did you get my question?
Did you get Obi's question?
Did you get my question? I have to repeat it.
You know, I didn't get obvious question.
Okay,
I thought it was making contribution.
My question is that based on your permutation, you seem to kind of give a Konkoso upper hand in the north, while Obi upper hand in the south. So if the election decides to go second round, it's likely going to be between Konkoso in the north and Obi in the south. What do you think is going to be the outcome of the results?
Okay, so quickly, 2 minutes so we can round up. We are almost 15 minutes beyond our normal time.
Well, do you want me to call the result as a prophet, as great oracle?
You might as well. So that
election is math. It's about numbers. You can roughly run it.
No, I can't do it. I can't do it as God. But if you look at the demographics, the politics, the numbers as they present themselves in the Northwest, and the capacity of the two political parties, and NNPP and PDP and APC in the North, you have more troubled states in the North. If the axis of evil plays to tie, the elections will be handed over to APC. The Kardashian states, Kaduna, Kebbi, Katsina, Bar Kano. You know why the oppressive political class really do not bother about touching votes in Kano and Lagos State? They know that when they touch the votes in both states have the capacity of collapsing the electoral process itself. Kano will be competitive. It will be left for Kwakwanso. But like I said, if the acts of evil play to their evil, I don't see Kwakwanso or Atiku having a shoe in the North. What happens in the South will be driven by anger. It will be the Baptist against obedient, against obedient. And if I gauge the anger, very well, I see the obedient movement having an upper hand in the South. And again, too, if the axis of evil, in conjunction with local politicians, do not rig the elections in 2023. I see the Obi train crushing everything in a sight. See, look at what is happening in our home state, Edo State. In fact, let me give you a picture of what's happening in your place, Ososo. Ososo is in the heat of kidnappers and bandits. I belong to an elite AFEMA group where we take stocks of attacks day in, day out. Reports that come from Akoko Edo, are terrible. And if you see the groundswell of support for labor, for for the Labour Party. Just a few days ago, consistent voices emerged from Edo State when rumors began spreading that Obaseki wanted to cross from PDP to Labour Party. What did Edo like tell him? So look, Oga, I bet day your day, just stay where you are. People who have invested in their anger are now in control of the streets and of this political party. They will determine what happens in some of these pockets of states, in 2023. In Edo State, we have about 800,000 votes at play, and every election, 350,000 people come out. But with the growing movement I'm seeing in the street, something great will happen in Edo State and across the South. Do you know why politicians like Wike cannot make up their minds? Because of the fear of youth anger in the South. I sit my mic to you, Rudolph.
All right, thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate you. I'm a subscriber to your shrine anyway. I mean, I'm waiting for you to adopt me a lot of the chief priests of your shrine.
Yeah, you're welcome. You're welcome, my brother.
Okay.
All right. Thank you guys so much. We really appreciate your participation. We hope we'll do this again in the coming weeks and months. As you've all stated, this is a consequential election for Nigeria and for Nigerians, and hope we get it right for the interest of Nigerians and the overall interest of our great nation. Thank you once again. We'll be back 4:30 p.m. West African time next week, Sunday, July 10. Follow us on all the social media platforms, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube, 90 Minutes Africa or Dr. Damages. See you next week, and have enjoyed the rest of your day.
Thank you.